I would like to inform everyone that the Steamship Authority is making an audio and video recording of today's meeting. And is there anyone else making an audio video recording of today's meeting? If so, please identify yourself by pressing the raise your hand icon, or if you're joining by phone, pressing *9 on your keypad. And when you're recognized, please state your name for the record. I don't see any of the attendees raising their hands, so I'm assuming that no one else is making a recording of the meeting. In response to Governor Baker's executive orders concerning the necessity to conduct public meetings in line with social distancing guidelines during the current state of emergency involving the COVID-19 pandemic, all working group members are participating today remotely in today's meeting because their physical attendances would be unreasonably difficult. All working group members are participating in the meeting by the Zoom video conferencing app, and all members hopefully will be clearly audible to each other. Welcome everyone. Michael Santoro has now joined us.
Hello everyone.
Good morning. And we have the first item on the agenda is a proposal to approach MassDOT to provide additional no speeding or similar signs on Woods Hole Road. And we've asked Ed DeWitt, who's the chair of the Falmouth Transportation Management Committee, and Stephen Tupper, who's the Cape Cod Commission Transportation Program Manager, today's meeting to try to assist us in this endeavor. And Steve and Ed, I think you know everyone here. John Cahill, who's just left, is a Dukes County Commissioner, and he is also the town of Tisbury. And Michael Santoro is, I'll let him answer that himself.
Representing the Oak Bluffs Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
Town of Oak Bluffs.
Okay. And Nat, I don't know whether you'd like to start this since this was your proposal to approach it, or whether you'd like me to try myself.
I think the goal is simple to state. We're interested in more frequent posting on Woods Hole Road of the speed limit. Of the existing speed limit. If there was interested, or if it seemed possible to lower the speed limit in places, I've heard, for example, that going south past the golf course as one makes the turn west, I've heard Woods Hole residents say that's the speed there is too fast. I think it's 35 right now. I would agree with that, but I think our first goal would be to more frequent signage of existing speed limits. I think that was it.
And Steve, last time, Mike Morrow from the Martha's Vineyard Commission suggested that we contact you because he indicated that there are procedures that would have to be followed in trying to get more signs or even to lower the speed limit. The other aspect, there is a certain, if I could put a situation, I'm going to try to share my screen. All right, this is Woods Hole Road that we have here. But one particular problematic situation, as you go south on Woods Hole Road, you go up to the golf course and it's a 40-mile-per-hour speed limit. And then you get just past the golf course and the speed limit drops to 35 miles per hour, just as it starts to go downhill. And we have had numerous and incessant complaints about trucks having to either use their Jake brakes or shift down, as well as cars, over this hill. And the question is, what can possibly be done in terms of more signage, or even earlier signage to lower the speed limit earlier, or even a no Jake brake sign there, something along that line that can get people to slow down earlier before they go down that hill. And so they don't have to just interrupt everyone on both sides. It then is 35 miles per hour there, and then it's a 20-mile-per-hour sign that is when you get closer to the Steamship Authority's terminal.
Steve, do you have any idea when it stopped being 40, or what was the sign before the 40?
It was 40 also. There's a 40-mile-per-hour sign going up to the, I'll go back. So this is just south of Oyster Pond Road. I did this last year, and these were the only signs I saw, and Nat has done a more frequent one. Then there's another 40-mile-per-hour sign going up to the golf course. That's the next sign. I didn't see any between them.
Because the Oyster Pond's actually 25, so maybe you mean FR Lily?
No, this is, it's 25 just at the intersection, and then shortly after that, it goes up to 40,
Okay.
I think.
I think this is almost before I think that 40 is almost before the Hui on the left.
Correct, at 260 Woods Hole Road. And then it remains apparently at 40 going south. I think going up, there's another speed limit sign there, going up to the golf course. And then that's where the 35-mile-per-hour sign was. And it's too late to have people slow down without shifting down or making a lot of noise with their engines. And then the 20-mile-per-hour zone is right there. And so what we're looking, and Nat and Doug, you live with these complaints constantly as well as we do. But I think this is where we get the most complaints. And this is where the golf course is.
Steve, I think we've described it. Yeah, that's exactly what I meant.
Okay. All right.
So Steve, can I ask Stephen Arujo, would it matter if you're approaching that hill, whether the speed limit was slower, would you still have to brake because you're on a hill? Are you braking because you're on a hill despite the speed limit?
Yeah, you're braking around that corner because just the weight of the load's going to push you down the hill around that corner. And right around that corner, you have that side road, and you always have people, they look left, they look right, and then they forget to look back left, and there we are. So that's one of the reasons for the Jake brakes and the jamming of the brakes. It's people coming out of them side streets more than you know.
So the speed limit, it really isn't the factor?
I don't believe it's the factor. I mean, coming in at 30 miles an hour, I believe cars come down that hill faster than 30 miles an hour.
Well,
I think it's just the way the road turns, and there's a couple side streets there that people just really don't pay attention when they pull out.
Steve, with all respect, why have a speed limit at all then? I mean, if you started at a lower speed, you would brake less, right?
Yeah, no, because it's a down the hill. You're gonna brake you got to brake to get down to that 20-mile-an-hour speed limit.
Well, I don't know where the 20 is. Oh, you mean all the way into Woods Hole?
Yeah, that's
How
all.
about a 20 where that 35 is?
You still
Yeah,
gonna be braking down the hill.
Well, I realize you can't do it without brakes, but if you started much more slowly, you also see signs like, hill approaching a hill or down.
The amount of truck drivers that I drive down that road 4 times a day, twice up, twice back, once in the morning, once in the afternoon. We're trying to be respectful. It is a state road still. It's not a little back road. It's a state road. There's so many parameters that you have to think about. Driving a truck and slowing down that hill. It's just not. I mean, if you want to take it back to 20, take it back to 20 to Woods Hole Road, and you just have trucks crawling by your house even slower, but they're still making a noise.
Well, I don't think we're talking about all of Woods Hole Road here.
But if I could, we've invited Ed and Steve here today. If they could, they're certainly Steve is the one with the expertise on this issue, and I hope you don't mind, Ed, if I ask Steve to weigh in on seeing what might be done or what possibly can be done.
So I'd be happy to jump in here and certainly interested in the opinions of Ed as well, based on the committee he's been working with. But first, I want to say certainly thank you for articulating all the concerns. I did touch base with Mike Morrow before and reviewed the minutes from last meeting to make sure I was up to speed. And then it helps today to hear some of the real specific concerns out there. So I want to preface the rest of my comments to the fact that I understand the concerns with speed. The process to do any of the changes in terms of speed limit signage is challenging. So I want to first acknowledge I understand the concern, and don't take all of the steps I'm going to outline as discouragement. If there's speed issues out there, we want to make sure we do what we can to address those. So the first thing I want to acknowledge, which was already referenced, it is a state roadway. So certainly you're on the right track in terms of approaching Mass DOT for any changes you're looking at there. Based on a number of these I've done in other towns across the Cape. I do want to acknowledge certainly that DPW has a good working relationship with Mass DOT, and it's typically most successful when they're directly involved with that conversation with MassDOT, because I know they're engaged on a number of changes on state and municipal roadways. So I just want to make sure that I highlighted that. And given that it's quite a process to make some changes, making sure that it's done in a very careful way is important. And in terms of what specifically can be done, most of what you're talking about here requires some real engineering work before you can make some changes in terms of the signage out there. So I looked at the signs that you noted there and the different speed limits there. Those are all lawfully posted speed limits. So to change it, there's a number of steps to go through. And it does depend on what you're thinking about. So I heard you talking about potentially changing speed limits. So that's one process. But there's also a couple conditions that you noted that could have a slightly different route. So certainly if you're looking to change speed limits, you're going to need a formal speed study done by an engineer. And depending on the length of the corridor, that could take a good amount of effort. But that's in terms of changing the actual regulatory speed limit on the roadway. A couple of things you noted seem to be more related to some conditions on the roadway that may be unexpected to drivers. So those the black lettering on white signs, those are regulatory speed limits, but you could consider some advisory speed limits like that would indicate they need to curve ahead and folks need to slow down, or indication that there's a reduced speed limit ahead. And whether or not those are appropriate depends on the specifics of the location. But that's something that certainly could be considered if there's a condition that the driver might not expect. That would be typically the time when you want to use some sort of advisory sign. It doesn't legally change the speed they're allowed to drive, but it lets them know there's a condition coming up that they should be anticipating. So those are some of the things you'd want to look at in terms of potential changes. And I will say certainly there's a procedure to setting speed limits. It's set out because really it's the character of the roadway that most determines how fast someone goes. So unreasonably lowering a speed limit isn't going to have a lot of effect on the drivers. So I certainly want to make sure that if you are looking to reduce speeds, you think about what's going on out there currently. And certainly advising of a condition is important, but making sure that the speed limits are reasonable is also important. So what I typically advise in these scenarios is really get a good handle on what's going on the roadway. If you do go to MassDOT and formally request speed zoning, an analysis of the corridor, they could come back with recommendations in either direction, which in terms of keeping the speed limit the same, increasing or decreasing. So I typically think is advisable is just getting out there and doing some spot speed measurements first. And that's what we've done in some other communities, just to give some numbers to some of the concerns you're hearing here to make sure we understand what are the true differentials. Because in some of these cases, it sounds like the speeding that is concerning isn't necessarily in excess of the posted speed limit. It's just a challenge at a particular location. So you want to make sure you have as much data as you can before you start down a particular path. And in terms of requesting that data, that is certainly something that we do regularly across the 15 towns on the Cape. The only thing I ask is, in that specific instance, I would request involvement of DPW for a request for us to do a count. And that's really just coming from a commission's perspective of, we get these requests from 15 towns. So I want to make sure that there's a process, and if there's more requests than we can handle, we have to make sure that there's some formal process to request that.
Steve, is there a typical guideline for past fire stations? I'm surprised it's 40 miles an hour as they're going past a fire station.
That is a good question. So there's a number of conditions that would warrant taking a look at a reduced speed limit in a specific location. I think off the top of my head, I couldn't give you an answer on the station specifically, but there's generally a good amount of signage to alert them, but certainly just having something that tells them they need to stop from 40 miles per hour is pretty abrupt. So I can take a look at that. Maybe
That would
while we're
actually do
talking.
it. With that station is, if it was slowed down because of the station, that would actually prepare them for the slower speed coming up.
Mhm.
And it's exactly the right location, I think, would answer some of the concerns about for the community.
That was a great point. That is something I can look into. I don't think from the examples I'm thinking of here, I can't think of a lot of instances where they slow the entire speed limit down in that area, but I can look into that a little bit further.
Because I think your idea about the warning signs would be good for the first time drivers, but so many of these drivers they know the road, they know what's coming up. Exactly as Steve said, they know about Harbor Hill and they've got to be careful about that.
Mhm.
And, you know, for the first time driver, a warning sign would be nice, but for the regular drivers, they already know about it.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's not drivers like Steve that who do it 4 times a day. It's we know that there are one-off drivers.
Mhm.
And maybe the
Probably
warning signs would be good then.
surprised as anyone by that hill.
But Steve said, you said that we would need a formal speed study to try to lower the speed limits. It may come back with increasing them. But for the advisory signs that you were talking about, what would be required to request those?
So there's some specific conditions that would warrant the installation of such a sign. So it'd have to be an engineer taking a look and seeing if those conditions are met. So typically, for example, if the speed limit's dropping more than 10 miles per hour in a relatively short distance, you'd have that sign to alert people that they need to reduce their speed. Where they're going from 40 to 35, it's not typical that you'd have that. On a
35
curve,
to 20 would be.
yep, that would be a much more abrupt drop. So it depends what condition is present and then how long before you go to that next condition. Similarly on the curve, it depends the actual curvature of the roadway. So you have to have someone take a look at that and see if such signage would be warranted.
And that's something the town engineer could do, right? You could ask Jim to do that.
That's something a town engineer typically takes a look at.
Okay.
Again, given that it's a Mass DOT road, there's be a little more process on the back end, but initially looking to see if it's warranted or not would be the first step.
Okay.
So I know I dropped a lot of information on you there, but certainly happy to answer any specific questions along the way.
Can anybody tell me how many speeding tickets have been given to that area?
It's a terrible place to put a police officer to, I mean, where are they going to stop, pull somebody over?
Mhm.
And I think that's something to, you know, we say, oh, it'd be great to put some tickets, but how are you actually going to do that?
Those are great, important points. Certainly engineering solutions are part of it, but enforcement's important as well if you want people to abide by the signs. But certainly the selectman's right there. It's really tough to actually station officers along that corridor. So that may be part of artificially low numbers would probably be my guess, just because it's tough to park and then it's tough to safely pull someone over. You don't want someone to try to pull over on that curvy road. So I can understand that there may be some logistical challenges to enforcement.
Excuse me for interrupting, but Mike Morrow just emailed me and he's having difficulty getting on. I'm trying to find him under the attendees by chance. And I'm wondering whether he is the Samsung Galaxy S8 active. And if he is, if he could raise his hand so that I can identify him and maybe move him to the participants.
If he's on a Samsung, you might have to, what's the code for raising your hand on the phone, Steve?
Oh, *9. Oh, no, then that would not be him because he said he's just having trouble with the video. Actually, I saw him on the attendees earlier. He's no longer there, so he may be trying to come in again. So we'll just continue on. Ed, do you have anything to suggest?
Well, if you don't mind, I'll just give you a real quick overview of what the Transportation Management Committee's interest in all of this is and what our thinking and perspective. I think it's germane to your discussion today. The Select Board reestablished the Transportation Management Committee in 2020 to advise it on all things related to transportation. because of COVID, we were delayed in an initial meeting and we didn't meet till summer. But we did identify 3 areas of interest. One was complete streets, which was the policy that the selectmen adopted earlier in 2020. And the other 2 were based on citizens' concerns and complaints. One of them was downtown parking and congestion, traffic associated with the downtown. And the second was authority freight operations, specifically the attendant truck traffic through Falmouth. And the complaint centered on what we're calling the 3 S's, which are speed, excessive speed, especially in lower speed zones. If you look at how the speeds break on Woods Hole Road, I mean, and Locust Street, I mean, it's 25, 35, 40, back down. It's up and down, up and down. There's no steady kind of state speed going on. So the first is speed, second is sound, braking, mufflers, illegal idling, backup alarms, and the third is smell, primarily trash, but other things. During our investigation, we also identified 3 specific additional areas of transportation concerns associated with the Steamship Authority's freight operations. Watson Corner, which is the intersection of Locust Street and North Main Street, which is a 90-degree turn where there's not enough swing for trucks to make it around the corner without crossing over into oncoming traffic. Overweight trucks, this is largely based on anecdotal information, primarily from authority employees, and through traffic violation on our own Main Street. Most of the transportation apps will take trucks through Main Street if they're heading east. And even though it's posted no through trucks, it is an issue for the town. And that was identified in our downtown investigation of traffic in the downtown. Just a quick note about overweight trucks. It only takes 1 overweight truck to cause damage. It's not a repetitive type of problem. Overweight trucks are more likely to be in an accident and a more serious accident. Ironically, the next most likely truck to be in an accident is an empty truck. Has to do with some of the physics and road contact and braking and those kinds of things, also crosswinds. Some physics, according to the GAO, the General Administration Office, 1 18-wheeler puts the equivalent force of 9,600 cars on pavement and bridges. If you compare the force of a truck carrying 1,500 pounds per axle to 3,000 pounds per axle, the difference is not twice as much, it's 16 times as much. We found that the authority's freight operation as it relates to roads is a 1921 sort of approach and design. It is not a 2021 design. Of course, in 1921, there was no interstate highway system. Trucks were smaller and rail played a bigger role in freight. And 2-lane paved roads were not still that common in 1921. So the world has changed a lot in the last 100 years for transportation. The current system relies on 2-lane roads through residential streets. The system serves truck traffic that is often empty or less than full, and the factors of the quality of life issues that we talked about, the 3 S's. Impacts from speed, smell, and sound can be reduced with better enforcement. While the State Police Truck Squad spends a fair amount of time on Cape Cod, especially during the summer, we have never seen them present on Woods Hole Road or in vicinity of the Steamship Authority. They are the experts on truck safety, truck enforcement, overweight trucks, and those sorts of things. We also have found in our analysis that if you don't have fair, consistent, and predictable enforcement, doesn't matter what kind of signs you put up, the signs will have no meaning. If if you're going to put up 1 sign along Woods Hole Road or something, strictly enforced is probably the best sign. But again, it's meaningless unless you're enforcing the sign. How you move freight is another issue altogether. The federal government, Department of Transportation sees the best way to move freight with a marine component or element is directly link the interstate highway system with the marine maritime highway. I was involved in the 2000 New Bedford freight experiment and talked about designing something to fail, no matter how you look at that, schedule, vessel, use, the rules, restrictions, and accounting all set up that project for failure. So our committee has recommended that the Steamship Authority look at what it would take to prepare a 2021 freight system to the islands. And we think the first step in doing that is to get available federal grants to look at what is the best way to move freight instead of taking this sort of piecemeal approach and looking at how do you get goods and services to the islands as opposed to trying to make a 1921 design work optimally, which I think you're never going to attain. So that's our position. I would point out that there are other anomalies in speed control on the route. On Locust Street, for instance, the speed is it's 25 in one direction and 35 in the other direction. So I'm not exactly sure from a traffic engineering how you come up with speed limits on a 2-lane road that are opposite or that are not the same in both directions. So that's how we're looking at it from our perspective as a transportation management committee. We think there's a lot to be done. There's a lot of impact. And probably this is, if you were starting from scratch, this is not the way you would design a system. You'd look at some other ways to do it. So I'm happy to take any questions or comments or criticisms or
I
disagreements.
have two questions. One, where did you get your information on overweight trucks going on the Steamship Authority?
I'm not sure, again, your
You had
question.
mentioned that overweight trucks that are overweight, you said you had information on trucks not.
Right, those are talking to people who work for the Steamship Authority who have commented to us. I said it's all anecdotal. I don't have any way of doing it. I do know that when the Steamship Authority shifted from, it used to charge by weight as opposed to length, when that change meant that any way of measuring how much trucks weigh going over was lost at that time.
Also, where can we find your findings, your reports that you're talking about? Is that on the website or? Because I'd like to get into it more.
We've sent a preliminary recommendation to our selectmen to send on to the Steamship Authority. We merely recommend. Mr. Sayers does have a copy of the initial report that we sent in terms of why we think it's time to look at how you do this, perhaps from scratch, as opposed to trying to fix something that is really an archaic design that's not working. I'll give you another example. One of the models for moving freight over on a short haul seabed is to use stackable containers that are compatible with like a small truck frame and Ford F-150 type frame that the container is, so that you're not moving trucks. A Kenworth tractor is almost 20 feet long. Now it's not all, some of that you can carry some freight on, but that's just wasted space. All of the air space underneath a tractor trailer doesn't need, it's not carrying any freight. And by using a hybrid system with stackable small containers, you can carry more freight in the same space or same area. You can actually carry more freight, particularly if it's stackable. So there's a lot of options out there. We're not saying this is the way to do it. We're saying we think that you need to bring some intellectual engineering policy and types of perspective into how would you design a system today if you were starting from scratch. We think that's the way that you should be looking at this, not necessarily trying to tighten some nuts and bolts.
Okay, and what you're talking about really does go well beyond the limits of this agenda item today. I think those are more appropriate for discussion with the Long Range Vineyard Transportation Task Force. And in fact, we're inviting you to pitch that proposal to the task force at their next meeting next week, along with the idea of potentially getting grant money to do a study with the federal government. And that discussion I look forward to next Thursday. But at this point, when I look at the agenda, first with the signs on Woods Hole Road, the speeding signs on Woods Hole Road, looking at the practical matter for the short term of trying to get things, one issue that's come up is enforcement of the existing rules, and the existing signs may be more effective than anything else we can do, certainly for this summer. And that is a matter, I assume, either for the state police or the Falmouth police to do. And I think the Steamship Authority would support the enforcement of all of the existing traffic regulations on that road and would try to assist that in any way possible. We also have the same interest in making certain that the trucks that go on our boats are not overweight. I think the limit is 86,000 pounds. I'm not sure. There have been some instances in which they do get special permits for heavier loads. I think our policies require the trucks that if they are carrying heavier loads than what's normally required with a permit, they still have to come to us because our transfer bridges we need to know that for our transfer bridges to make certain that the transfer bridges can sustain the weight of the trucks that are going across. So we have the same interest in Falmouth in getting trucks that are not overweight onto our terminal. And that's something that Nat put on the agenda for later on in the meeting, going to MassDOT to conduct spot weighing checks of trucks. Now, that may be to the state police instead of MassDOT, but maybe the state police are assigned to there. But for what I'm hearing from Steve Tupper is to look at how the traffic is flowing now on Woods Hole Road, who I guess we should be starting with is the Falmouth Engineering Department at the Falmouth DPW. And they should be approached to see what might be appropriate measures that can be taken as a practical matter, either getting with that. And then another prong of this approach may be to try to get enforcement of what's there at the moment. And I'll just throw it out there for that and try to limit the discussion to that for the moment before we get on to other things. I mean, Steve, is that your recommendation that we talk to the Falmouth DPW engineering people and see what they think might be appropriate?
I think it would be certainly important to engage with that department. And they may have some insights, again, acknowledging it's not road under their jurisdiction. They do coordinate on these roadways. So they will likely have some advice as to what they can be done or the next steps if there is a request up to MassDOT. Then I guess the other related request would be if there's a desire for some speed measurements in the future to get some data behind any next steps. Coordinating with DPW, we would be happy to do what we can in terms of doing some measurements over the course of the summer when we have additional staff that are out in the field doing that sort of work.
And that would be from a request from Falmouth DPW to Cape Cod Commission.
Correct. Each spring, actually, I think it's actually this month at our joint transportation committee meeting where we have all of the DPW directors from the 15 towns, and we put out a request for what are the traffic counting needs over the course of the next summer.
Okay.
So the DPW directors all send in those requests. We see if we can meet all of the requests, which we typically can, but we do that process to make sure that we're able to equally distribute our effort across the 15 towns.
And I guess for Falmouth, I would hope that probably the starting point would be Ed's committee to then quickly make a report to the selectmen saying, this is something we'd like you to look into with the DPW and with the with the local police, as opposed to me as a select board member stepping past the Transportation Management Committee. Now that we have this committee, and I sort of feel like if you guys take the ball and run with it very quickly, then we'll jump on board with that.
And I think was the import of the last meeting we had, that this is up to Falmouth how it wants to proceed in this. And I think the Vineyard members of this working group wants to support what Falmouth wants to do in managing the state highway that goes through Falmouth. And I think Mike Santoro's only concern is this something that's going to be opposed by the Woods Hole residents? That was the only concern that was expressed. But the Vineyard members of this working group did not want to be accused of telling Falmouth what it should do with its land in that way. And so that's the only concern I think that the Vineyard members had. But if we're talking about looking with the engineering department to see what additional measures can be taken to correct any traffic problems on that road and enforcement of the measures that are already there, those seem to be very practical suggestions.
And I'm happy to go right to the board, depending on what Ed would like me to do. Would you rather have me come from this committee to the board or have it go to you first?
I think because of the time and the fact that the committees is meeting, I think it would be much faster for you to go ahead, and I'll advise our committee of what is transpiring
Okay.
in terms of that. Also, our recommendations have sort of gone through this slow process to you.
Right.
And so
I just don't want
think
your
that's-
committee to feel that we didn't listen to you
Yeah, well, I'm not saying that, but
or didn't ask you.
I think this is not controversial. It's consistent with everything else the Transportation Management Committee has said about this operation. So I would leave it to you to take it right to the Board of Selectmen. I think that's the most thing. And if we can get something before Steve Tupper's transportation group at the county level, I think that would be the best thing that can happen.
Great. I'll take care
I
of
do
those.
think that we're going to have to ask also to get the state police truck squad involved in this. And I'm not sure if that has to go through, the state reps and state senator, or, whether we have a means of going from Chief Dunn to the state police to get that.
Steve Tupper, do you have any insight on that in terms of how the state police can be asked to spot check?
I do not. So I think you're going to be talking to the right people. I don't have a specific contact or department to reach out to there.
Anecdotally, we spoke a year ago, I think, with Chief Dunn about that. And the anecdotally was that there used to be a lot more spot checks of the trucks on the Steamship Authority boats when the state police officer in charge of the spot checks apparently lived in Mashpee, I think it was. But he retired, and therefore, as a result, the other state police officers are not as willing to go all the way down to Woods Hole in order to spot check the trucks. That was all anecdotal. Steve Arujo was raising that. I don't know.
The DOT is out there. They were at the Bourne Rotary today, and most of the trucks that come to Woods Hole have to go by that Bourne Rotary. So the state police see these trucks, they know these trucks, and we go by them every day. It's not like we're avoiding them. It's not like we're trying to break the law. It's I think, yes, we're bigger. Yes, we're heavier, but that's the purpose of our jobs, and that's the purpose of our trucks. We're not trying to ruin the road. We're not trying to ruin the neighborhood. I think the steamship has nothing to do with the sound of the trucks or the speed of the trucks. I think that has to be an enforcement issue. I think there's other options, but I just think, truthfully, we're getting unfairly picked on right now because of the situation. I mean, I've done everything I can, to go slow I have a quiet truck. It's just part of the business. This is not just a Woods Hole thing. This is a Cape and Islands thing where it happens all over the Cape. It's not just happening in Woods Hole. Everybody loves to come to the Cape. So when they come to the Cape, they need the supplies that these trucks bring. Without a truck, you're not going to get anything. You're not going to get your coffee. You're not going to get your jeans. You're not going to get your milk. You're not going to get your gas. You're not going to get just about anything. Everything you pretty much deal with every day is brought with a truck.
Right, and we're glad to know that the state police are out there at the Bourne Rotary, and no one's picking on you, at least I don't think so. And we just want to make certain that our customers, our freight customers, are complying with all the rules. As you said, Steve, it's an enforcement issue as much as anything else. And I think that's where we're
I
headed.
understand that. I've been down in Woods Hole, and the state police have checked my truck out.
Yeah.
They've been down in Woods Hole. I've seen the state police. Yes, Trooper Monenberg has retired, but there's other cops state cops that have been down there.
All right, that's good to know. And then maybe we can also get some communication as to what they have been, so that we have some information as to what they are conducting in terms of spot checking of trucks and where they're doing the spot checks. That may be information that they may be able to provide.
Steve,
Yes, Mike.
could I get a clarification? The state road, the road that comes off of T-Ticket Highway all the way to Woods Hole, is that state road all the way in?
Yes, that's a state highway.
So I guess I have to ask Ed, when you say the roads are getting, beat up, are you saying some of the trucks aren't directly coming from the highway to Woods Hole, they're going on side roads through Falmouth?
No.
Because that's not Falmouth's concern, that road, the state road, correct? It's the state that keeps that road up?
We're concerned about all of the roads in Falmouth, and if we have to deal with MassDOT to have the roads repaired, then that's the path that we go. So it's also a hodgepodge. There are sections of town road within the layout, and that's one of the most confusing issues that we have to deal with, where we have to have part of the layout is town, part of the layout is state highway, but it's mostly state highway. But there are pieces of town road. But overall, we're concerned about the transportation system within Falmouth, regardless of who has control, such as the Steamship Authority is part of this transportation system in Falmouth, and it has a downhill impact on Falmouth. So if we just looked at the marine operations of the Steamship Authority, we might look one way, but we have to look at this as a system, and everything works together. So
I know one of our past meetings, it was brought up, how do you gauge the trucks that are going through Woods Hole Road that aren't going to Woods Hole specifically to, NOAA or getting to, it was hard to separate the trucks going to the steamship and or just to the service Woods Hole also. And you've got trucks that are going, UPS going on side roads off of that road also. I know it's difficult. I just need a clarification.
Well,
That
I
road
can
is
tell you
state road.
this. I can tell you this, that at least 80% of the trucks on Woods Hole Road are going to the vineyard. It's really quite high.
Like we did look at that. That actually was the number I found as well, comparing the Cape Cod Commission and the actual physical trucks being carried by the steamship.
Yeah, 80%.
Depends on the day of the week, but there wasn't 80% in there.
How long was that study for again now?
Well, it was exact. This is exactly. It only bridged the 4-day measurement period that the Cape Cod Commission does. But this is what was sent around on Monday.
Right, I know, I'm just making sure.
So this is just from their annual count program from the 27th to the 30th?
Yes, looking
Was that,
at
so
the
this is just
truck
from their
length.
count program? Were these counts done at a request, like specifically for this purpose, or? Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because it seems like that's what the data was done for. Seems like it was a specific request.
Yeah, if I could clarify that, there's a count location on Woods Hole Road that's an annual count location that we do just as a course of tracking regional trends. And Mass DOT specifically made sure that we counted on this roadway. So it wasn't done at the request of this committee, but I understand that there's been some extrapolations of the data. And just to be clear, we counted the number of trucks. That's all we know. We don't know the destination based on our data.
Thanks, Steve.
Okay, Doug,
Steve, and if I may, I have Steve Sayers and Allison Fletcher. I have a question about mechanics. Given the large impact of the steamship and share of trucks, is the steamship available to reach out and request that the state police truck squad visit? Is the steamship authority available to approach MassDOT? I'm a little confused about, it sounds like that may come later, but a letter of support.
No, we're not, we can't approach the state police in order to do that, to have them come down with their inspection teams. And then as far as the signs, that has to be done by the town on the road. We have no,
Yeah, I didn't suggest you would be installing them, but a letter of support, just in the spirit of this working group, that would seem logical to me.
I don't see a problem with having spot checks of trucks for weights that go on the Steamship Authority's boats. I don't know whether they can be held at the Steamship Authority terminal because of the space required also with the construction project. But generally, I think encouraging enforcement of traffic regulations is something that everyone is in favor of. And I would be disappointed if we were not. And we talked about that a year ago with Chief Dunn. And the idea was that I think Chief Dunn was going to be talking possibly to the state police about that, because that was a state police issue. That's when we had the discussion. I think, Nat, you were there as well. So I don't think that's a controversial issue. It's a question of just having and finding out what the state police are doing. And
So Allison said that you guys could not send a letter asking DOT to do that. I guess I'm concerned, why not? It might not do any good, but why can't the Steamship Authority send that letter?
because it's not, unfortunately, it has nothing really, once they're on the property, it kind of defeats the purpose. Don't you want to catch these people before they get down to the property?
I want to catch them. I don't care where.
Yeah, I mean, we're not gonna ask the state police to bring that down there when we already have details as it is and space is limited. If they want to do a check up on Woods Hole Road at one of the pullouts, they're more than welcome to do it there. I mean, that dirt pullout,
Unfortunately, this is exactly the thing that frustrates the Woods Hole community, and that more than anything. You could write a letter asking, and you're just saying, no, we're not gonna. And
I would
that's a
think,
really unfortunate answer.
I would think from a safety perspective, you'd be interested in overweight trucks as much as we are.
I think the other thing is that once truckers know that, they're going to get caught for overweight loads, they're not going to haul overweight loads in terms of what's going on. There's one other comment that I wanted to make from the earlier discussion that I forgot to make. In an earlier life, I had I would call it the privilege of attending the Connecticut State Fire Apparatus Drivers Training School. And one of the points that they drove home was driving an emergency truck, that going at a constant steady speed, you actually get places faster than accelerating and slowing and accelerating and slowing and accelerating and slowing. You use more fuel, you are harder on your brakes, you do everything else. So having a consistent speed through the length of the road, I think is in everyone's interest, instead of having small increments of up and down speeds.
all right. Doug, are you going to bring this up to the select board? And if so, do you want any of us to be involved in talking with the engineering people at the DPW?
They'll reach out to you if they need to.
Okay. Right.
But I do think getting the DOT to do the spot checks is something that I'm going to ask my board to support, that we asked the chief of police to request. And I just wish that the steamship authority felt it was important enough to do also.
Okay.
I think what you guys are forgetting, these trucks aren't coming just 7 miles down Woods Hole Road. They're coming all across the state, all across the country. So there's checks out everywhere. I have no problem with, the DOT coming down and checking the truck. I'd rather have my truck, safe than not. But it's you guys just concentrate on the 7 mile area down Woods Hole Road. These trucks come many, many miles, and there's many, many checkpoints in between here and there. And another thing is, some of the trucks have weight permits. I mean, they have weight tickets. So they don't want to drive all these miles overweight, because what happens is, if you get caught overweight in some places, you have to take the weight off and get to the regulatory weight before you can even move the truck, or you have to get towed.
I can attest, I own the Net Result Fish Market in Vineyard Haven. And my truck, the big truck, was up in the summertime, and I can tell you, last summer, we got pulled over 6 times coming out of the seaport before we even hit the highway. And I'm not a big truck, but I can tell you that coming out of certain areas, especially the seaport, they're constantly checking.
But I don't think this is a controversial subject. So I think we're at a good place at this moment, where Doug is going to continue with the select board in Falmouth, that the engineering people will contact us if they need any assistance from us. And that has to do with whatever changes, whatever additional signage that we can have on Woods Hole Road. Are we all set with that?
I just have one question. Doug, the Falmouth Police, they can issue citations on the state road, correct?
Yes, I believe, I'm certain they can.
Yep.
Okay, yes, John, yeah, you're muted. You're muted. There you go.
Thank you. I have a question for Stephen Tupper. Stephen, in normal conditions, when you put a request into the DOT, what's the time frame? Say if Falmouth wanted to propose changes, what are we looking at? 6 months, a year and a half?
So let's see. It depends on the scale of the change, first of all, but I think in terms of general timing that I've seen, it starts out with a letter to the DOT, and they're fairly responsive in terms of getting a letter back to let the town know what would need to be done. So if it's a simple yes, no, then you get your answer. It's more likely that they're going to request some engineering work in terms of a speed study if there's really any changes proposed, and then that will take several months to conduct. I don't think I've seen one of these fully effectuated in less than a year, probably, by the time you go through all the steps.
Yep.
So yeah, it's a longer road to make some of these permanent changes of speed and signage.
So at least a year, up to 2 years would be a safe measurement?
That's what I've certainly seen, yes.
Okay.
And to be frank, in many cases, the effort wasn't carried all the way through.
Yeah.
Just to put it simply, yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And if I may, while I have the floor, I just checked our traffic counting timing. I don't want to put any undue timing pressure on the traffic management committee or the select board. We're going to be looking for our requests the first week of April, so you've got a little more time. I don't want to stress the boards out.
We have enough stress as it is. Thank you. Well,
Steve,
yes.
and I know, Doug, you were disappointed. You're looking for an answer for support today. I would think that, I don't think this committee you could just say, yeah, okay, we'll write a letter to the steamship. Wouldn't you go to the governors and ask the governors to approve such a thing first? Or can this committee, you can make that decision here today on certain things?
I think we need to I think we support enforcement of the weight restriction, clearly.
Right, yeah,
It's in our interest.
yeah.
How it's done, how many times they come through, whether and the pushback is that Steve Arijo feels he's being picked on because of that. So that's where we want to make certain that the state police enforce the weight restrictions, also the speed limits. We want all of that done correctly. I don't think that's controversial. And what type of support letter is, I don't think we can give a support letter asking them to come down to the Woods Hole terminal and do it there, because there's not sufficient space there, especially during the summer for our operations. What I think we can certainly support is the continued enforcement of spot checking trucks for weight restrictions on the approach roads to the Woods Hole terminal. And that's, as Steve Arroyo said, that's the Bourne Rotary, that's by the bridges, that's all the way down. And we do support that. I can't believe that as a public agency, we wouldn't. But the correct approach would be to go to the board and ask for that letter of support.
Will that be done, or is that just an idea?
I think we would discuss that with Bob Davis. And we would have to find out whether it's a generic letter of support, whether it's a specific thing. We don't know the particulars of the request, and that's something that we can talk about further. But I really don't think this is a controversial thing where we should be arguing among ourselves on this.
I think the problem is us as a board. I don't think we have any way to do it. The town of Falmouth has to say to their police officers, you have to be out on the road. The steamship authority should have nothing to do with speed. They're a charter to run things from point A to point B. Speed and sound by the town of Oak Bluffs. I support, the quiet trucks. I support the speed limits. I support the overweight trucks. But this board, I don't believe, or the steamship has, any say in it. I think it's the town of Falmouth or the state police.
Steve, you're not suggesting we're wasting our time here?
No, no, not at all. Ed, you run that committee. I was a selectman. I served on the Roads and Byways Committee, and we would, I can't tell you how many times we went after our chief of police, because unless you have enforcement, you're absolutely right. Things will continue to stay the same. And that's been my experience also. So that was my point. That's why I asked, can Falmouth police pull trucks over or do enforcement on
Not
that
for
road?
overweight trucks. They can't do overweight trucks because they can't weigh them. That's the reason we're suggesting that the steamship authority could send a letter, as we will, asking the DOT to come down and do the spot checks.
Yeah, I was
That's all
talking
we're saying.
about speed.
And Allison said, no, they can't do it.
I think this board, I think we support, I don't, again, I go along with Steve, and I would support any, like I said, all enforcement that can be done along that corridor.
I think it's fantastic.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Steve and Ed. And Ed until next Thursday, and Steve until we meet again.
Thank you for inviting me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
All right. That took a little bit longer than anticipated, so we may be moving on quickly. The next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the working group's January 27th meeting. Nat has asked since this time that the PowerPoint presentation that I sent on Monday with the shares of traffic that he estimated on Woods Hole Road be added as an exhibit to the minutes. I don't have a problem with that. It's not normal, but it's done from time to time. And it does, they are adequately described in the minutes as to what they are and whose information. So I think there would be a completeness to the minutes if that's all right with everyone.
I'm fine with it.
Okay.
I
So
have
may I
no
have,
problem.
so may I have a motion to approve the minutes with that change, which I'll make as a reporter's note?
I'll move.
Second?
I'll
Second,
second it.
Okay, Mr. Arujo,
Yes.
Mr. Cahill,
Cahill, yes.
Ms. Fletcher.
I don't vote anymore, remember?
Oh, yeah, we don't vote. Yes. Mr. Jones.
Jones, yes. And Steve, I'm going to be switching over to my cell phone, so I'm going to be zooming out and then zooming back in.
Okay, you'll be zooming. Mr. Morrow,
Morrow, yes.
Mr. Santoro,
Santoro, yes.
and Mr. Trumbull.
Yes.
Yes?
Nat, yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you. All right. Update on the SSA's enforcement of its policy. Let me see if I can do this again. These are the number of trucks that came in before their allowed time from January 21st through February 21st of this year. We added at the end percentage of compliance at John Cahill's suggestion at the last meeting. We're doing pretty well for the 6 o'clock trip, pretty well for the 6:30 trip, which is the hazardous trip. And we need to improve for the 7 o'clock trip because people were coming in early. We discovered this week that one of the reasons for that may be that someone is on the 7 o'clock trip is trying to get on the 6:30 trip. And that may be why there are a number of early ones on there. So we expect this to improve beginning this week after we've had that conversation with them. The other aspect is the amount of time that they've come in early. You'll see for the most part, it's within a few minutes. There was an outlier for the 6 o'clock trip, the one that came in 19 minutes early at 5:11. Nat heard him. He emailed, he was loud, and that particular customer was not cooperative. And Nat has always asked whether we ever actually make anyone forfeit their reservations, and we've said we haven't had to do that. But this time, we're saying that we actually have forfeited a customer's reservation. That was a customer who came that early, and I believe he will not be early again. And he had to come and go on the boat another day. So we are enforcing this. We're keeping this ahead on track, and we're trying to make certain that the trucks do not arrive earlier than they're allowed for the early morning trips.
Steve, may I ask, are you going to be sending out a new note to the truckers about these arrival times so that everyone is clear about them, especially as the schedules change?
We usually do it on the schedule change. I think the last one was October, so what we're due for another one now. Whenever anyone is early, they get a copy of that, by the way. So it's not as if the people who are early don't know about it. But yes, we'll probably do it when they for the spring schedule, which may start
End of the month.
end of the month. That's a good reminder. Thank you, Nat.
I think repetition's good. Yeah.
My concern with that is a minute or two, I think we're going overboard. I know there's a time, but if you get stopped at the light on Woods Hole Road, that's your minute or two. I'm gonna ask you guys a question. If you go to Logan or you go to a hospital and you show up early, do you turn around or do you stop or do you leave? It's a minute or two over 150 miles. I think I understand what we're trying to do, but we're a little bit nitpicking right now, I believe.
I do disagree with you, and we aren't actually doing, we're giving an allowance of a minute, by the way. We only start if they're 2 minutes early. So it's not a minute or two, it's 2 or more. And we don't turn the people who are that early by just a small amount away, because we understand that's not the issue here. If we turn them away and they come back to get on the boat, we're just creating more traffic. And those are the situations where it's simply a matter of hitting the light correctly or incorrectly at Quissett Road. But if we don't enforce even a 2-minute early arrival and let them know and tell them don't do it again, it allows creepage to come in. And then it's 2 minutes and then it's 3 minutes. So we're telling people, don't arrive more than 30 minutes early. We're sticking by it, and it's all working out pretty well. We've only had one bad incident so far, and everyone else is. We had one customer, his trucks were arriving 2 minutes early. We spoke to the manager there, and they haven't arrived 2 minutes early since.
But let me ask you a question. If they're not arriving early, are they piling up somewhere else in Falmouth?
I don't know, but we haven't had any complaints of that.
Okay,
And if that were to happen, then we would have to try to deal with that then. But it's working out pretty well. It means that the trucks are not arriving as early in Woods Hole. That was the whole object, and that was one of the biggest complaints we've had. So hopefully we're improving in that area incrementally.
okay.
Okay. And that, any backup alarm complaints?
I wouldn't know how to, should I be reporting them? Yes, they happen.
If you could report them when they happen, that would be great, just so we know. I mean, those normally, probably the complaints are for the 6:30 hazardous, which I think they have to back on. But
Correct.
we're talking
16
about
them.
complaints when they're staged beginning at 5:30 up until 6 o'clock or so.
Well, you're right. At one point, they've just become almost continuous.
So
So you would like to know about any backup
but-
beeps
well-
before 6:30? Is that it?
well, before
Before
6.
6.
Before
Or
6.
6?
And you had emailed us at one time that it did happen, that I know
It
about.
definitely happens.
Okay.
Another problem with that is there's trucks down in Woods Hole that aren't going to the steamship. There's Allied Waste picking up the trash for the pie in the sky, and there's delivery trucks that they also have backup alarms. And they're lifting the dumpsters and stuff like that and banging. I just to say it's a backup alarm, if you hear a backup alarm, that could be anywhere within the mile. You know, you can't specifically tell me it's coming out of Woods Hole.
Steve, I go down there a lot.
Yes,
Frequently.
I remember. I've seen you down there many times.
I can provide video. It is more often than not the steamship.
Okay,
Although, no, this is where I'm agreeing with Steve, because I have been there myself at 4 o'clock in the morning to witness. And when I was there, and this was during Kevin Smith's tenure, he was excellent at having the staging have no backup alarms. And then I would hear a backup alarm from Water Street or from Railroad Ave or from Luscombe Ave. So if you hear a backup alarm, it's important for us to know so that we can check it and see whether it was from our operations or whether it was from someone else. And it could be both. But if we generate them before 6 o'clock by staging trucks there, we want to improve those operations.
And Allison, that camera that's being used to report in on the arrival times still doesn't have there's no mic, there's no audio. So that would be the way to figure out who's doing it.
We can't comment on that for security reasons.
So I'm your security.
We are not allowed. We are not allowed to comment on that. Okay. Running through stuff because we're doing through update of emails received by Woods Hole Traffic. We have not received any. We will probably, given that we did a postcard at lower cost than what we had anticipated, it's probably time to think about sending out another one at the beginning of the spring season, something like that, just to remind people.
I would agree, Steve.
Because we did get a number of comments when we first sent that out, and they were good comments.
Yeah, you sent that in December, you'll be getting new families that are arriving.
Correct. Well, maybe April or May, something like that, to send it out. Something like that. But we sent it out, I think, in November, and we got a whole bunch of emails at the beginning of December. And then they petered out after that. And that leads to number 7, the update on the SSA's visits to its Woods Hole neighbors and problem noise areas. Over to you, Allison.
So I have reached out to a few of the neighbors that Steve has given me contact information with. All of them have been fairly receptive, except for unfortunately either due to the fact that they're not in their homes right now due to whatever situation's going on, or also for COVID. I have gone out and stood on Woods Hole Road with my handy dandy sound monitor and did some tracking of my own. But other than that, it's pretty much it. I will be going back out, hopefully. Unfortunately, tomorrow won't work, but Monday or Tuesday, I'll be back out there again, listening and checking with the sound app.
Okay, all right.
Allison, I'd be very interested in what results you're finding in the absence of a more, a less than labor intensive automatic collection system, monitoring system.
Well,
Be nice to know what
unfortunately or
you're finding.
fortunately, what it tells me is everything's loud, cars and trucks.
But they're not, their decibel, I mean, your meter is reporting decibel levels,
Correct, and they're all roughly around the same.
which, how much is that?
And they're at 6:30, was it 6:30, I think it was, when the boat was unloading, and it was a steady rate around 80, 85 on the decibel meter. And that was with cars, that's with trucks. Obviously, the more vehicles going by, the louder it is, the higher it goes. But it didn't really seem to make much of a difference between cars and trucks.
And that's going up the hill?
That was when the boat was unloading and I was standing at, I keep calling it Sleepy Hollow, but that hotel right there.
Sands of Time.
Not Stands of Times, no, the other one.
Tree something, Tree Lodge?
Treetops,
Tree
Tree
Top.
Lodge, Tree House, Tree something.
Treehouse.
There we go. Someone figured it out.
Okay,
Well, we need to compare notes because I find the trucks are louder.
Okay.
and that'll continue on through the month of March. Anything else on that one?
Nope, not on that one. The noise of the Bruno's trucks and the septic trucks. I've actually spoken with both companies personally, their actual drivers, and informed them that they need to, maintain speed, don't be speeding, try to, be more courteous to their neighbors, and they both are extremely receptive towards it. So, of the two waste hauling trucks.
Okay. No one says anything. I'm just going to continue on since it's 5:15. Update on efforts to eliminate traffic backups on Woods Hole Road when the standby line at the Woods Hole terminal was closed.
So that's an ongoing situation. I mean, unfortunately, or not unfortunately, but fortunately right now, we don't have that issue with the volume coming down for standby. It is definitely something that we will look at staggering when we tell people to come back. Other than that, we have to really start delving into it a little bit more. I am reaching out to the terminals to ask them their thoughts and ideas of how they think the standby works for Hyannis and Nantucket, where they put it online as opposed to just showing up and sitting. So I'm waiting to get feedback from the terminal managers on that, on if they think it's feasible or not.
And I understand we're also keeping track in the terminal turnover notes of when the standby line is closed during the day, when
Correct,
it's open during the day, and how many vehicles we're leaving behind every day.
correct.
Okay.
And I sent you all the results, with the exception of today, because standby was closed down today with the boat broken down. But it was reopened and it was no backup on the bridge, so.
Okay. All right, continuing on, unless someone interrupts or interjects, I should say. Steve Arujo's invitation to join him while he was driving his truck on Woods Hole Road. Steve, you're going to check to see if
Yeah,
that's allowable.
We're just waiting for this COVID thing to quiet down. Hopefully, soon I'll be on the list for the COVID vaccination. And that was John's main concern, is just, the safety of myself and safety of whoever's going to ride with me with this COVID thing.
Okay.
So I'd say within the hopefully next month and a half, it shouldn't be a problem.
Okay, we appreciate it. And we appreciate the invitation, and it's understandable given the situation. I thought there might be an issue with that going on. Appeal to MassDOT to conduct spot check weighing of trucks carried on the SSA's boats. Matt, do you agree we've covered that?
Yes.
Okay. Update on truck check-in system and how this could be made electronic. Nat, over to you.
Well, my understanding is all, or many of the truck drivers need to leave their cabs, physically walk into the ticket office, wait in line if there is a line, and be processed that way. To me, this seems like a 50-year-old system, and why aren't there barcodes and scanners? One sees this on Washington State ferries for at least cars. I don't know about trucks actually. And then even today I was thinking I saw a truck coming related to the broken ferry. I saw heavily loaded, a lot of trees going back into Falmouth. And I suspect that truck driver didn't know that his ride was broken to the ferry.
Or you could have been going the wrong way.
Or something else was wrong. Seems to me this would be a perfect use of nice application. I noticed the steamships got a $2 million budget allocation for a new website. It seems like maybe you could get a nice app for so that your poor truck drivers don't need to get out of the cab, risk going into the building. It slows down everything.
Why don't I
I've seen
suggest,
cabs idle without drivers.
why don't I suggest that we look into it and come back and give a report on the truck and check-in policy at a subsequent meeting? I mean, my understanding of the issues with the checking in the trucks is that they often arrive at different lengths than what they have reservations for. So changes have to be made directly at the terminal based upon that. Because if they come in with a smaller truck, so they don't have to pay as much and it's filled more, they have to go in. But I think that's something, rather than do it at 5:19 on afternoon, we should come in and try to give you a report on why the current check-in policy is what it is and what improvements we think we can make to it.
Well, I mean, I feel badly. Those truckers are running around at 5:19 a.m. Before they get on the boat. And to me, it seems like a waste of time. Everyone's time.
And I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just saying, I'm sorry, Steve.
When you're driven down there, you have to go check in, like Steve said, because of the length and everything. But you also have to see what you have for passengers. And some of the guys just have to go to the bathroom. So it's all,
Yeah, I mean, seriously, can't go to the
you know,
bathroom.
it's all one of them things. I think they want to just get out and stretch their legs.
Okay, but let's look into
Well,
it and come back.
yeah, one wouldn't exclude the other, I think.
Okay. Is that, we'll revisit that at another meeting and we'll put that on the agenda and explain. If we think it's the right way to do, we should be able to justify it and this may help us think of some improvements to it. So, thank you. All right, Nat's presentation of contents of www.woodshole.net.
See, I think I can share this. Just before I get to that, I did. So, shoot, it's not coming up, is it? You got a blank screen there?
Yep.
Let me try one other thing. So I did want to make the group aware of a resource that we are adding to continuously. And there's video. So in the absence of a noise monitoring program, which this group nixed, the only solution I've found is shooting video and audio. And I don't think the audio would come through here, but this is one way to measure sound and exhaust. And while we don't get a decibel reading, you do get a pretty good idea of just how noisy these trucks are. So I guess I'll be shooting up more video. So this is ending up on this website, and I would encourage this group and others to be watching it because it seems to be some of the only evidence. So Allison's going out. This may be the only other source of observation I'm aware of that gets registered. So the website is woodshole.net, or use the same link above, and we'll continue to add to it. It's somewhat labor intensive. It'd be nicer if we had some kind of automatic system, but I think you'll have a better sense of what we're experiencing after you've viewed and listened to these videos. We try to include the time and dates as well. I guess this does have the advantage, you can tell exactly, you can see whose truck it is. So there it is.
Right,
I won't
thank
go.
you. Okay. You're gonna allow us to come back to me?
Okay.
Yes, there we are. Okay. All right. New outreach initiatives to the community. Are there suggestions? Matt?
So I would recommend we repeat that postcard or something like it.
Did I steal your thunder?
No,
Okay,
I think we already mentioned this. That's all.
Yep. Okay, all right.
Nat, all them videos you're taking are right at Church Street. Yes or no?
That is true. Well, not only, but the ones on the top, that's where they are, right?
So every truck coming out of Woods Hole is pulling that hill right there. So they're accelerating to get out of that hill. That's where you're getting the noise from.
Yes, especially when they're loaded.
Even more so, yes.
Yeah, I'm still trying to understand why some trucks are quieter. Steve, you'll know better, but my sense is some cabs are newer,
It's-
have different exhaust
some-
systems.
Some just have different exhaust systems. The mufflers
There's
are
like,
changed.
the range is
just-
just huge. It's amazing.
It's just like a car. There's some cars louder than others. Older cars with worn out mufflers are louder. The newer cars with these new emissions, they're gonna be the quieter cars.
Well, it all impacts our quality of life, so that won't surprise you.
Okay. And then the number 15, noise impacts of the 5:30 a.m. freight trip included in the SSA's proposed 2022 operating schedules. And that you would put this on as well?
Right, why don't we leave that for next? I did see the steamship's already proposing a 5:30 again. Why don't we move that to next? I'd be
Okay.
willing to withdraw that.
Okay,
I think there's time.
all right. Establishing the date and time for the working group's next meeting.
Oh, it's April already, man, gonna be, yeah.
What about April 21st at 4 o'clock?
That's, not that it matters, that vacation week on the island.
Okay. April 28th?
Well, if it doesn't
April
matter, then
28th works.
Works.
Yep.
Good for me. I'd rather do that than move earlier because that earlier week is our town meeting week.
Okay. Matt, is that good for you?
yes.
Okay.
Huh?
April 28th, 4 o'clock. Thank you all.
And I made a request to put on our agenda for the March 22nd, an item on Woods Hole Road and Steamship Authority traffic.
Okay. All traffic, not just Steamship Authority traffic, all traffic. That's what Mike Santoro was warning you about. You may be catching that's what Chief Dunn said. The people that are enforced against will be the residents and not the people going to the island.
I was just making it clear I was making a report from my work with this committee.
Okay, all right. Okay.
All
Okay.
right,
Thank you all, everyone.
Bye.
all right, take care.
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Yes.
Mr. Rougeau,
Yes,
Mr. Cahill,
Cahill, yes.
Mr. Jones,
Jones, yes.
Mr. Morrow.
Morrow's gone.
I think he's spoken with his feet. Mr. Santoro
Santoro, aye.
and Mr. Trumbull.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.